All right, everyone. You are watching Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We are striking up a live stream on a Sunday afternoon. As promised, this will be part of our summer-long schedule. Sunday at 4 o'clock, Monday at 6, Wednesday and Thursday at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Live streams 4 times a week, and you guys know me better than that. There will be more than that. So hopefully you got the schedule down. Monday at 6, following our Sunday at 4, Wednesday and Thursday night at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. That's going to vary from time to time, especially this week, since tomorrow I am venturing off to the American Conference Media Days. So that should be a whole lot of fun. I've done that, I think, 2 out of the last 3 years. This will make it 3 of 4 to the American Conference Media Days. Welcome aboard to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I know that a number of you will take some time to filter into the chat. It's an open forum today. I'm going to let you know what we've done recently, what's coming up in the next couple of weeks. We can talk college football, bring whatever your comments or questions, and we will have phone lines available in a few weeks. Hopefully. I will be working on that as I've got my to-do list of 72 different things, and that's one of them. Definitely, I want to hear from you guys directly. For right now, I will monitor the live chat, and as you can see, I'm in a bit of a different position that I typically am, and I'm just making some changes here with a number of rooms and looking at some different staging. This is not the the best staging. This is not what it's going to be, because if there's anything that you learn in television production 101 is not to shoot into a window. As you can see that the natural light, even if it isn't that sunny out, the natural light is so much more powerful than any light or lighting that you can have inside as you create a silhouette. So I even have lights on me. I've got the overhead lights and I've got 2 stand-up lights right in my face, and it still doesn't come close to the lighting behind me. So this is not going to be the permanent look here at Mark Rogers TV, shooting into a window. So again, TV production 101, do not shoot into a window. I'm violating that today. All right, so we have this giveaway, and I apologize for not awarding that and not giving that away yet and not naming the winner, but I want to get Alonzo involved in that since he is the giver of the giveaway. Alonzo1219, he's the guy that made it all possible for us to have our very first prize giveaway here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And so what that was, if you haven't caught the first ever, there will be more, the first ever. So let your heart not be troubled. There will be more. From June 15th to July 15th, whoever brought me the most subs during that 1 month time won some swag from Alonzo1219. I'm going to get Alonzo. I've already had several conversations with him. We just can't work out a time to get him on at a particular time that we can award the swag. So if you believe that you've won the swag, rest tight. We're not going back on our word. You will get your prize. All right, let's see who's on the live chat right now. College football is only 6 weeks away. And this being a Sunday, you guys know, many of you know what that means. Sunday, first Sunday, college football. Who's playing? Yeah, LSU in Miami. Sunday night, 6 weeks from right now. 6 weeks from right now, we will already have Michigan, Notre Dame in the books and a number of other key games, Northwestern, Purdue, and some other decent matchups across the country. But we will be awaiting right now, 6 weeks from now, at 4 o'clock Eastern Time when I'm doing my live stream. You guys will be going ballistic. I know you guys will just be chomping at the bit, ready to watch some football and ready to watch those 2 teams in particular, and I will be as well. Miami, LSU, 6 weeks away. Okay, let's see what you guys have on the live stream. Panther Pro 22, good to see you, as well as FTW 305 MDC. I believe that I've seen comments from you before. If I've yet to welcome you to Mark Rogers TV, I want to give everyone a welcome that jumps on for the first time, whether it be just watching the videos, watching the live streams, or that jumps on and comments. So welcome whatever all that stands for, FTW 305 MDC. Something having to do with Fort Worth, possibly Fort Worth 305. I don't know if that's the area code. Boca Chica Bay, LSU quarterback, Joe Burrow, correct? I know that it's still a battle. It still is in the mind of Ed Ogeron, or maybe he truly knows, but he's going to be one of the coaches across the country who is not going to tell us. But I believe it's going to be Joe Burrow. I don't think he's got it locked up. I still think it's an open competition, but I truly believe that they knew in their pursuit of Joe Burrow that he would win the job unless they saw something that they just couldn't tolerate in his decision-making, in his attitude toward the team, anything like that, which we don't anticipate there being an issue there, that Joe Burrow was targeted by LSU to start the 2018 season. Greg McElroy of the SEC Network and ESPN made a comment during SEC Media Days about Joe Burrow that he watched all of his passes from last year. I think it was 39. It was quite amusing because he said that he made all the throws that he needed to make, but then they showed one on video in which he got extremely lucky. He underthrew the ball. The route was covered. It was an out route. He underthrew it. I believe it was Ohio State Rutgers, I think was the other team. And the ball should have been intercepted, went right through the DB's hands, and KJ Hill caught it for the Buckeyes. So other than that, Joe Burrow made perfect throws every time in his 39 attempts last year. So LSU fans, don't be worried. Nick Medley, Joe Burrow going to start at LSU. Brennan better than Burrow, Panther Pro 22. Miles Brennan better than Joe Burrow. I don't know. I don't know. I have yet to see either one of them play. I've seen Burrow play, but I mean really play against a defense when it matters. Burrow played against some okay defenses, some marginal to poor defenses, at least in the Big Ten. But again, the game's not on the line. Guys were not playing in anger necessarily at that point. So difficult to judge, but he can make the throws. Miles Brennan will be the main competition. And we expected him to start going back to the end of last season. We expected Miles Brennan would be the starting quarterback at LSU. Maybe Thomas 8, ask NCIS when he comes on. Yeah, that's between Nick and NCIS fanatic. Noah, who is the sixth best team in the Big Ten? Sixth best team in the Big Ten. All right, you guys are going to see my previews and predictions in the next few weeks. Off the top of my head, Ohio State's the best team in the Big Ten. They've got the best roster. Wisconsin has the second best team in the Big Ten, and they may actually turn out on the field to have the best team in the Big Ten. There's no question Ohio State has the best talent in the Big Ten. Of course, Dwayne Haskins has to do the job. And I've got some issues with the linebackers. I'm going to have to see improved linebacker play from the Buckeyes. Wisconsin's number 2. I believe, and I'm going to hear it after I say this, Michigan is the third best team in the Big Ten. That's what I'm saying right now. I still have to work a few things out, and it may not be reflected in their record because of how difficult their schedule is. I believe Penn State's the 4th best team in the Big Ten. Michigan State's number 5, and then number 6 is Iowa. Iowa is the 6th best team in the Big Ten. They have Nathan Stanley back at quarterback, 26 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. They have Noah Fant, maybe the best receiving and overall tight end in the country, coming back. Iowa also has a stellar defensive line. A stellar defensive line. And they're missing their linebacking core. Josie Jewell and company all gone. So they're hurt at linebacker. They're hurt at running back without James Butler and obviously Akram Wadley first and foremost. They have their top receiver back in the slot, Vandenberg. He is back. Noah Fant back. They have a little bit more speed on the outside than they've had in recent years as well. I expect Iowa to be a very interesting team. I haven't yet necessarily. I've made my predictions on paper. I've gone through the schedules and made my initial predictions, but I want to preview the teams and then attach the predictions to the previews. What I've got here are schedules from every team in the Power Five. And I've gone through and done the comparisons. And the very first thing that I do is I divide them by conference. And then I rank them just based on first glance. I just base it on first glance, first and foremost. And I stack them based on conferences. So if I think the SEC is the best conference, I put all the SEC teams first, and then all the Big Ten teams second, then the ACC, then the Big 12, and then the Pac-12, let's say. And then I go through all the SEC schedules, and I'll take like an Alabama versus an Auburn, and I'll eliminate all the games that they play exactly the same. So that eliminates about 6 or 7 games out of their schedule. And then I just compare Auburn and Alabama against each other just based on the other 5 or 6 games that are different and who has the tougher schedule. And then I keep doing that over and over and over and over and over. Then the other thing I did was I took a FPI power ranking from 1 to 130, and I assigned that to every team in the country, and then I added up the aggregate totals that each team was facing. And this isn't where I came up with my final score, because I trust my instincts a little bit better than that and my deduction process. But for example, Mississippi State plays Stephen F. Austin, Kansas State, Louisiana, Kentucky, Florida, Auburn, LSU, Texas A&M, Louisiana Tech, Alabama, Arkansas, Ole Miss. The FPI that I looked at had Stephen F. Austin. Well, they're not in the Power 5, so I just have to assign them a ranking. And so I did that based on how good of an FCS that I believe that they are. There are a few FCSs obviously better than some lower tier group of 5s. Kansas State was ranked at a 26, Louisiana at 116, Kentucky at 73. That was too low, so I pumped them up a little bit. Florida at 53. That was too low, so I popped up Florida. Auburn at 11. LSU at 41. Too low. Knocked them up 10 or 15 spots. Texas A&M 31. Louisiana Tech 61. Bama 2. Arkansas 69. Ole Miss 76. Ole Miss too low. Knocked them up 10 or 15 runs. And then I came up with a score, and I'm in the process of putting all those metrics together to deliver you the schedule rankings. That's the only thing that you guys haven't asked for that I am bent on delivering, because I love doing the schedule rankings, and I should have done it back in spring ball because you guys need season previews at this point. But we'll do better next year. All right. Michigan backup might be McCaffrey. Dylan McCaffrey may be the backup quarterback at Michigan. Brandon Peters, freshman last year. Brandon Peters has taken a lot of heat and been dismissed, but he had a lot of teams after him, a lot of programs after him coming out of high school. Extremely talented quarterback, really only looked awful in the bowl game. He looked lost in the bowl game, made poor decisions, poor reads, poor throws against South Carolina. Other than that, Brandon Peters played pretty well. They didn't cut him loose, didn't ask him to do anything crazy or really test his arm, but he's fairly mobile, He got hurt against Wisconsin diving for the pylon, knocked out of that game, missed the Ohio State game. And even though Brandon Peters did not set the world on fire last year, if Michigan has Brandon Peters in the game against Ohio State instead of John O'Korn and all the wide open throws that he missed, maybe Michigan pulls off that game. They're up 20-14 in the early fourth quarter, late third quarter. All right, Tim Lee is an Ohio State fan. I'm scared of Michigan, a solid team with some anger. I'd put Michigan as second in the Big Ten. Okay, so Tim, I don't disagree with that. You heard my analysis. I put him at number 3. I think some people would put him 5th or 6th behind Michigan State and Penn State. I don't disagree with that. I want you guys to remember, when I put a ranking on a team, I'm not taking the schedule into consideration. So some people do that when they rank teams before the season. I rank them exactly the way I believe that they stand best to worst. I don't then look at the schedule and think, man, LSU's pretty good. They're about the 20th best team in the country, but man, they got a brutal schedule. I'm going to rank them 40th because they're going to lose all these games. Well, let's see it play out that way. Until that happens, I'm going to rank them as high as I believe that they should be ranked based on their ability, based on the talent on the team and the coaching staff and all those factors. I also think that for those of you who weren't around for last college football season, you guys will like my weekly Sunday afternoon rant on the top 25. So I point out what's wrong with the top 25, and I just go to town on the top 25 and how illogical it is. And of course, there has to be a couple games played, maybe even a week of games played before I can say this makes no sense here and here and here. And then I give you my top 25 and love your responses. So, of course, like, comment, subscribe. And remember, we are just 2 subscribers away from 5,000. When we hit subscriber number 5,000, that person, if they choose, if they would like to, they don't have to. We're not going to come to their house and set up their laptop or their iPhone and make them, but they can have a debate, discussion, whatever they'd like, but a debate with myself. Mark Rogers TV fan debate to subscriber number 5,000. And then number 10,000 is going to come a lot sooner than 5,000 did. Harbaugh really hasn't produced much yet. At Michigan, not really. Let's also understand they were 5-7 before he got there. 5-7. He took the exact same team with only his one recruiting class that he had little time to assemble, and he instantly won 10 games, beat Florida in a bowl game that went to the SEC championship game. Yes, they were deplorable on offense, but still beat a decent Florida team, annihilated them. Looked bad against Ohio State, but played the big teams well other than the Buckeyes that first year. Lost to Utah opening night, went 10-3, finished in the top 10 in the country. Then went 10-3 again with those ridiculous losses that they had down to the square inch against Ohio State. You guys know the drill. So I am only knocking Jim Harbaugh on this past season in which the best team that they beat was Purdue, who we thought was awful at the time, but turned out to be pretty good. So they only beat Purdue, and then everybody else, every other test, every other challenger knocked them off. Michigan State was a very close game. Penn State blew them out, made them look ugly. Ohio State was the superior team in the fourth quarter, but that was a close game. And South Carolina, they blew that game. Credit South Carolina, but Michigan was going into the end zone. Think about this. Third quarter, Michigan's up 19-3. Karan Higdon is going into the end zone with the ball. And I forget who it was for South Carolina. Michigan, at this point, must just despise South Carolina defensive linemen. Jadeveon Clowney, he wrecked that game, the Outback Bowl. And here we are in another Outback Bowl, 2013, 2017. 4 years later, Jadeveon Clowney on Devion Smith, I believe. Was it Devion Smith? Or it was the running back that went to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Can't think of his name. Who was the Pittsburgh Steelers running back from Michigan? Fitzgerald Toussaint. I think he was the back that Clowney blew up when Michigan was up 1 with about 8 minutes left and blew up the Outback Bowl and made college football history. Here we are 4 years later. Michigan's about to go up 26-3 with Karan Higdon going into the end zone. He's at about the 4-yard line. Ball comes loose. South Carolina takes over, and they win the game. Turns the whole game around. All right, how long do you think until Chip Kelly gets UCLA up to where Oregon was? Henry, welcome to Mark Rogers TV. Please let me know how long you've been watching. I'm just curious. And if this is your first comment, I believe it is. I haven't seen you before. So thanks for joining. Henry, we uncovered in doing some research an interesting fact about the UCLA roster in comparison to the Oregon roster. And we all know the success that Chip Kelly had at Oregon. He takes a lot of hits for his personality, for his arrogance, for his, at times, being a bit aloof, and then going to the pros and not being successful. At Oregon, he elevated that program way beyond any of us dreamed where Oregon football could be. No, he did not close the deal against Auburn. They lost on the last second field goal to an SEC team in the championship game. Look at all the other SEC championships during their run. They blew out everyone. They dominated all those games. That was the one game where somebody took an SEC team, Auburn 2010, Cam Newton, to the wire. So that's how good Chip Kelly was at Oregon. He went 46-7 at Oregon, 33-3 in the Pac-12. The only teams that could beat him were basically NFL teams with NFL players just 2 or 3 years younger. Ohio State, LSU, Auburn, etc. Stanford had his number there a couple times. So that being said, if you look at the talent that Chip Kelly won with in his final season at Oregon, which would have been 2013, correct? They finished in the top 5 in the country. You take that Oregon roster, their recruiting classes, all ranked between 2nd and 4th in the Pac-12. They all ranked between 15th and 25th in the country. You could take those 4 recruiting classes and put them right on top of UCLA's roster, and they're almost exactly the same. UCLA's last 4 recruiting classes all ranked between 2nd and 4th in the Pac-12 and ranked all between number 15 and 25 in the country. I'm not saying that Chip Kelly's going to go in there and win 11 games the first year. It's just odd to me that he was able to achieve that in the Pac-12 with good classes, but underwhelming classes. And now he has the same talent at UCLA. And yes, the classes can be ranked incorrectly, slightly. And guys leave programs, and obviously we know that 2 stars and below step up. But we're talking about 100+ players. That means something. Chip Kelly this year against what is the Pac-12's most difficult schedule. Spoiler alert, my schedule rankings are coming out, so that's a bit of a spoiler alert. I just ranked the Pac-12 schedules. I got them all right here. And UCLA has the toughest schedule in the Pac-12. I'm almost positive that's where I ranked them. So Chip Kelly's going to have a difficult time moving past 7 wins this year, but it's not going to take him long. Now, Henry, wanted to get your name there. And again, welcome to Mark Rogers TV. The one disclaimer I'll put on Chip Kelly's effectiveness at UCLA is that his first go around at Oregon, he was in front of the wave. He was in front of the curve. His offense was, I don't want to overstate this, some would say revolutionary. It was just ahead of its time. It's like when Steve Spurrier took over first at Duke, then at Florida. Defenses could not keep up with his offenses. Defensive coordinators didn't know what to do. When Steve Spurrier then went to South Carolina, what happened? Everybody was running that offense, or 2/3 of the country was running his offense, and it didn't fool anyone. It didn't take anybody by surprise. He didn't have the mismatches, and he had a little bit lesser talent at South Carolina offensively than he did at Florida. So what happened? He put together a bunch of 7-5 seasons to start. Then Steve Spurrier realized, I play in the SEC, and I'm going to load up on defense in the front 7 in particular, and running backs, and we will win with smart, efficient play on offense. And he won 11 games 3 consecutive years. So if Chip Kelly can make the transition from offensive guru gimmick offense to a certain extent, and that being his calling card, to I'm truly a head coach that can run a program regardless of the scheme that I implement. We'll see if he can do that. I believe that he's going to be successful at UCLA, and success at UCLA means that he is going to contend for the Pac-12 championship on a regular basis, meaning every 5 years, his team's going to march into that final week of the season or the final month of the season, and they're going to be in contention for the division championship, and he's going to win the Pac-12 1 or 2 times every 5 years. That should be the mark of success at UCLA. This is not Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State. But then again, what was Clemson 10 years ago? Clemson was not winning the ACC. They hadn't won the ACC since 1991 until 2011. And so Dabo Swinney has changed the expectations at Clemson. Mark D'Antonio has changed the expectations at Michigan State, and Barry Alvarez a long, long time ago changed the perception and the expectations at Wisconsin, and Brett Bielema and Gary Anderson and Paul Chryst have carried the flag and benefited from what Barry Alvarez established. Appreciate you guys jumping on board. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. See what you guys have for me. Too bad 28, nice. You may not miss the Big 12, but the Big 12 misses you. I miss our rivalry game. I think you guys are talking amongst yourselves. Too bad 28. Nice job of responding to our Big 12 media days this week. So if you like the Big 12, sometimes we slight the Big 12 here on Mark Rogers TV. Not intentionally, Big 12 fans. We have lost contributors. At one point, about 3 years ago, I had more Big 12 contributors and guests than anyone, than the other conferences. And then I lost them all. They're still friends. They're still good acquaintances on Twitter. They're just busy, have other things going on in life. And I just need to build up my Big 12 base. And I'm doing that. Big 12 country pulled through for me this week. And so we got you delivered Texas, Oklahoma, TCU, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, West Virginia videos this week. All right, what else do we have? Navy Thomas 8, taking his shots at the Big 12 as usual. 2021, OK and Nebraska meet again. Should be good. Texas, Oklahoma, a rivalry, cause it should be. Dwayne Baker, this is the first time I've seen your name, Dwayne. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Please subscribe, comment, as you are here in the chat, but comment to the videos and like the videos as well. So I let you guys know from time to time to like the videos. That doesn't mean I'm saying you need to like this video, agree with this video. But if you believe that we are producing quality college football discussion, debate, and analysis, then please support us, because that's what we aim to do. Provide you with information, insight, knowledge, hopefully a little debate and entertainment in the process too. And so even if you don't agree with me, if you think I'm doing my best and I'm knowledgeable and I've researched it, investigated it, and I'm delivering as unbiased a product as possible, then support me. Like the video. Then in the comments, disagree with me. Say, Mark, Michigan's not the third best team in the Big Ten. They're the sixth best team in the Big Ten. Or as Tim did, they're the second best team in the Big Ten. Mark, answer Vlad's question about the West Virginia secondary. Too bad 28, you do a wonderful job. Thank you. So I'm guessing Valdez Mosley. Valdez, good to see you. Don't be a stranger. We've seen you in the past. Valdez asking about West Virginia's secondary, unable to dominate the secondary recruiting market. How is West Virginia able to dominate the secondary recruiting market? So we're making the assumption here, based on I don't know what here, you'll have to enlighten me, that West Virginia has the best defensive back recruits in the Big 12? Definitely, even though Texas has been down, they completely dominated the last season's cycle of recruits in the secondary. Texas brought in the best defensive back haul in the country. So that was last year. And I would be willing to tell you that in the last 5 years, that Texas, Oklahoma, yeah, those two would have the best defensive back recruits in the Big 12 over the last 5 years. Texas, again, the 2017 haul, go to the Texas website, of course, after the live stream. Go to the Texas, any of the Texas websites, and look at the commits for 2017, or 2018, I should say. 2018 and 2017, but specifically this 2018 haul at Texas was ridiculous. They got 2 or 3 top 5 safeties and cornerbacks this year. All right. Hopefully I answered your question, because I don't really understand it, because it makes the assumption that West Virginia is bringing in the best defensive backs in the Big 12. Machine Unit, Mark, Michigan is definitely number 3. Whiskey and OSU are ahead of us. So Machine Unit right there with me. Ryan, good to see you. I thought Texas was dominating that position. They are. We had BJ Foster on about a year ago. So if you'd like to hear from BJ Foster, and this is when he was contemplating Texas, Ohio State, and I believe LSU, but the best or second best safety in the nation signing with Texas, we had him on here about a year ago. Tim, Texas is scary. Tom Herman is a Texan, isn't he? I think he is. I don't know that. Maybe somebody can verify that for us. If we had NCIS Fanatic on the line, he loves to verify stuff for me. Dwayne Baker back with I like Texas to win the Big 12 this year. Mark Herman will have them ready for success this year. I watch Sports Savant. He's very good. I do too. And we've talked a few times and would love to have him on at some point to talk Oklahoma and the Big 12. All right, Texas. Let's tear apart Texas here real quick. 2 quarterbacks in play, Sam Ehlinger and Shane Buechele. You got the runner, the inspirational leader, the fiery kid in Sam Ehlinger. You've got Shane Buechele, who has a better grasp of the offense, who throws a better pass, doesn't necessarily have a better arm, throws a better pass, is more accurate, more polished. So is Sam Ehlinger taking those strides to be able to complement what he does well, which is have a decent enough arm. He's got a strong arm and run the ball well, like a fullback, like Tim Tebow, probably like a fast Tim Tebow, slightly faster. And with all this time and all this work during the spring and now in the fall camp starting in a couple of weeks, will he be able to grasp the offense, take command of the offense? His teammates love him. They love watching Sam Ehlinger take on linebackers and safeties in the secondary. So that's what Texas has going for it. The running back position is weak. And when I say weak, I mean unproven. We'll see if it's weak. Colin Johnson on the outside, along with Will Jordan Humphrey, bring back tons of production. And that's even with the issues that they had at quarterback. What I'm concerned with Texas is I believe that they have the talent on defense, but they have to fill in some huge holes left by Poona Ford, Malik Jefferson, Deshaun Elliott, and somebody else I'm forgetting right now that was exceptional last year. Deshaun Elliott was one of my favorite players in college football. Made great plays, big-time disruptor. So missing those guys is going to be difficult. This recruiting class in 2017, some of those guys are going to have to make an impact. So this happens from time to time for a team that's talented but still thin on the depth chart and still lacking some pieces to compete with the elite, where you'll get a recruiting class like Texas did in the secondary where it's like, wow. Well, not all those guys need to step up this year, but they need 1 or 2 of those guys to step up. Out of those 5 or 6 elite defensive backs, they're not all going to come through and be players this year. Some will need development. Some need to grow up a little bit physically and maybe mentally and emotionally. But they need 2 or 3 out of those 5 or 6 to pull through and be solid players, strong players, developing players, good players that make an impact. Country boy, what's up? Good to see you. Sports Savant, yes, you do a nice job. You do an excellent job. We appreciate you jumping on the live stream today. Volunteer Roadshow, the first time I've seen you. Volunteer Roadshow, man, we talk a lot of Tennessee football. If you haven't seen that, Mike LaValle does a great job with Last Word on College Football. So Tennessee or Volunteer Roadshow, if you love Tennessee, and I'm kind of making just a stretch of an assumption here, that if you love Tennessee, you go to Twitter and you follow Mike LaValle from Last Word on College Football. And I have him on all the time. He loves Tennessee, talked it up big time. Go back over the last week, and we've got Mike LaValle on. We've got Charlie Burris from Orange and White Report doing a great job for us as well. Charlie Burris, Orange and White Report. Check out that video, Volunteer Roadshow. Not volunteering today. Peyton Manning Academy. Navy Thomas 8. Feeling good about his memory of Peyton Manning versus his beloved black shirts. It was ugly in the late 90s, twice for Tennessee against Nebraska. Not so a couple of years ago when Josh Dobbs got some revenge for the school in winning the, what was that, the Outback Bowl? No, I don't think it was the Outback Bowl. It was one of those second or third tier bowls. Henry, does Washington have what it takes in the trenches to deal with the Auburn defensive line? Washington brings back one of the best left tackles in college football in Trey Long. They missed him for the back half of last season. That was key. That was key in particular in that just improbable loss that they had at Arizona State. Don't know if you remember that game. I remember latching onto that game after watching some bigger games, what were supposed to be bigger games, and seeing Arizona State's being Washington like 6-0. What's going on here? And then watching the second half of that game and watching Washington's offensive line just get manhandled up front by Arizona State. Well, one of the big missing pieces was Trey Long at left tackle. He's one of the best in the business. Started as a freshman. He's an All-America type player. The rest of the Washington offensive line, 4 of 5 starters come back. They should be good. Now, to handle that Auburn defensive line, that's a different animal than anything else Washington will face this year. The only thing close to it will be Utah. Stanford, weak along the defensive line, surprisingly. Very thin along the defensive line. Not the particular players. They're pretty big at Stanford, but thin in the depth chart at Stanford. So, yes, that will be the biggest test for Washington, and that will be a game that I will probably mull over until, well, I make my predictions on Saturday morning for the Saturday games, and that will be one of the most difficult ones to make. Washington has to travel all the way to Atlanta and play in SEC country and look at the history of the SEC playing that Saturday game. So what it's been in the past is there's been 2 games at times. I don't think this year, though. There's been some other times in which, like, an Ole Miss played at Boise State on a Thursday night in Atlanta, and then they turned around on Saturday and had Alabama play West Virginia. I think that was in 2014. They've done that several times, not this year. But the SEC's track record of playing game number 1 in Atlanta is phenomenal. Alabama has crushed Virginia Tech and Clemson, and they beat West Virginia, who gave them a game with Clint Trickett at quarterback. Auburn has taken care of a few opponents. I mentioned the Ole Miss-Boise State game. It's difficult for a team from the West Coast to play that neutral site game. And I really love that matchup. It's going to be a great one. It is going to be a really good one between those teams because Auburn, we don't know who's running the ball. We know the names, but I mean, we haven't seen the production out of the Auburn running backs. They had a great recruiting class at wide receiver, and we know some of the names now. I mean, going back 2 years, and those guys have come through and become major threats. Auburn loses a lot of pieces on defense in the back 7. Georgia beats in North Carolina. Yeah, remember that game. I just actually saw one of the plays from that game. It's when it was still a close game with a couple minutes left, and Nick Chubb went like 75 yards. Good call, Ryan. Remember that one well. That's when North Carolina was good. That was the Mitch Trubisky year, I believe, 2 years ago. Too bad 28, talking to Lamar here. Defensive talent in Texas is signing elsewhere, and it damages the conference. Yes, the Big 12, the defensive talent compared to the other conferences is subpar. And most of it goes to Texas and some of it to Oklahoma and a smattering to TCU. I guess Texas wants to focus more broad nationally, but yeah, they should narrow down and nail down Texas. Texas and Florida have the best athletes. Don't forget, Tim, the great state of California. A different type of athlete, some different positions involved as well. But we talked about this around National Signing Day, and we ran the metrics. We went to a number of sites to verify this. If you look at the top 500 or 600 players in America every year, 40% consistently come from those 3 states: California, Texas, and Florida. Catfish from Volunteer Roadshow's in the house. I'm a dog fan, but Volunteer Roadshow does good videos. He is Uncle Luke's buddy. Well, I'm glad that you guys came over to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. If you need to know anything about me, what I do, it's plain and simple. We knock out college football analysis all the time. We try to cut it straight, unbiased, and we do our very best to cover all the teams in the country. Now, we do have guests on, so the guests that I get kind of dictate which direction we go, and of course, the better teams get more focus, but I try to cover everybody. Here's a list idea: top-performing offensive and defensive configurations according to NCAA divisions over a given temporal parameter metrically. Wayland Media. I'm seeing a lot of people for the first time, so I love this. And if you guys just want to jump in for a few minutes and check out the videos and let me know what you think. But this is what we do, is analyze college football. I deliver rankings on teams, on schedules, on coaches, on players. And we do analysis from me, and we also bring on the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry. Just recently, we've had Jerry DiNardo from the Big Ten Network, Glenn Mason from the Big Ten Network. Peter Burns joins us on a regular basis from the SEC Network, and he will be on very soon. He went to Europe and said, hang on, I'll be back. And now he's back, and I knew that he had the SEC Media Days last week, and we will try to get Peter on here soon. And a lot of other people that these guys like that we have on a regular basis. So you guys continue to give me suggestions on guests, and I will go after them. Somebody had 2 suggestions for Georgia Tech contributors, and I reached out to both of them. They both responded, and I will have them on here very soon. Somebody else responded with some Clemson guests that they wanted to see. Pigskin Pete would be one of them. And we have tried to connect, and we will soon. And also, I have a few other Clemson guests awaiting time on Mark Rogers TV. Georgia athletes are just as good as any other states. Yes, they are. So, Ryan, if you look at the numbers, the sheer numbers, Georgia is climbing. But over the last, I looked at last year's and I looked at the last 5 years combined, and Georgia still, there's a gap between Georgia and then that upper 3. There's still a gap that exists, but the talent's exceptional. You've got Georgia right under that line, and then you've got Ohio, Pennsylvania, Louisiana, South Carolina, some of those states. If I missed anything from you guys. Yes, Lamar says right there, LSU, Ohio State, Florida State, Alabama, Notre Dame, having a buffet on Texas recruits. Music City Bowl. I knew it wasn't the Outback, but it didn't come to mind. Music City Bowl. I'm going to guess the score was 34-24. That's the score that comes to mind. The Tennessee won 34-24. You guys can check me on that one. Tim Lee ranking quarterbacks at the NFL level all time. Montana, the New England guy. Hugh Millen. Hugh Millen, excellent quarterback. Oh, you mean Steve Grogan. Steve Grogan, New England. Yes. Or maybe you're talking about Jim Plunkett. So Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, Hugh Millen. 3 greatest quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, according to Tim Lee. Henry does Washington. We talked about that. What have I missed? If there's anybody I didn't say hi to, I'm saying hi to everybody. Appreciate you jumping on here to talk college football. Yeah, I'm going to have a hard time looking at Texas, Tim. I noted, I started to dive into Texas, then I got down somewhere else. But I was basically just noting that the defensive class this past recruiting cycle was enormous, but I don't know how much they can contribute. And they just lost so much productivity from a defense that I don't think, because they weren't playing huge games, because they didn't put themselves in the position for people to be paying attention to Texas late in the season, People don't realize how good that Texas defense was last year in a league where everybody was scoring. They weren't scoring as much on TCU and especially Texas. 29 points from Baker Mayfield, even with the Texas offense making mistakes. And a pick six from Deshaun Elliott in staying close to USC at the Coliseum in double overtime. And most of all, holding Mason Rudolph to 10 points in regulation at Oklahoma State. Texas did not have a bad defensive game this year. They held Drew Lock to 16 points. But their best four players are gone. See what else you guys have for me. Anything else, anything else, anything else? So what makes you think that Wisconsin with less talent could be better than Ohio State? Can't be the coaching. Wisconsin has simpler concept. So what I mean is that the most talented team doesn't always win the game and doesn't always win the season. Yes, Ohio State has better athletes than Wisconsin. Wisconsin, though, with an experienced quarterback in Alex Hornibrook, and people chuckle when they think about Hornibrook because he looks like and has typically acted like the typical Joel Stave kind of Wisconsin quarterback, the guy that you just fear is going to make a big mistake. He doesn't have a huge arm. He's not dynamic. He can't get away from anyone, and he limits the offense. Bart Houston, Joel Stave, Scott Tolzien, we could go on down the list. The exception, of course, was in 2011 with Russell Wilson. But Alex Hornibrook is starting to show us something. Go from gun to gun during the Miami game, and he was throwing some lasers. I watched the whole game against Michigan, but what comes to mind is him leading 2 touchdown drives against Michigan when they were down 10-7 in the third quarter, and he was throwing lasers. If he starts to make better decisions, Alex Hornibrook could have an exceptional year this year, and Wisconsin is so much better on the outside with A.J. Taylor and Danny Davis and a few other guys than they have been ever. They sometimes have one guy that scares the defense a little bit, Jared Abbrederis, somebody like that. Usually nobody on the outside. Now they've got 2 or 3 or 4 guys. This is a bit of a different Wisconsin team offensively than what we've seen. Wisconsin may not be as good in the front 7. That's where they really were torn apart by the NFL draft and by graduation. All right, back after Zoe finishes his chain video. So we're competing with Zoe right now, which that's a great thing. Miami fans, if you want to go watch Zoe, that's awesome. He's my guy. Ryan, Iowa defensive line is the top 5 in the nation. They've got those defensive ends that are just exceptional. All right. Anything else? Henry Stevens, see him for the first time. Frank Bibbs, I don't know that I've seen Frank before on the chat. Good to see you. Falls Howard, Michigan backup might be McCaffrey. We covered that ground before. Good to see you as well. Ryan, do you think someone will improve Arizona recruiting? They hover around 60 nationally, and I think they need to start breaking into the 30s at least. So that's a good projection out of you. That would be the target. You would think that a program that should be winning 7 or 8 games a year consistently and having that cycle that they can take a shot at the Pac-12 South every 1 or 2 out of 5 years, that Kevin Sumlin, with his name and with accentuating the positives there at that university and the location, would be able to sell especially quarterbacks and wide receivers and all-purpose backs to Arizona. Totally agree, Ryan. That was a failure of Rich Rodriguez, and maybe he just didn't have enough time to establish himself there at Arizona, but that is what Kevin Sumlin needs to do at Arizona. He is not going to recruit a top 15 class in the 30s, and he has a chance to really take hold And it may be at a bad time with Chip Kelly entering UCLA, but hey, it's college football. It's big time, big boy stuff. You're going to have a team or teams or coaches that are really good in your way wherever you go. And that's what he's facing at Arizona would be first and foremost that USC juggernaut. And I know the team's not a juggernaut right now, but USC is USC. And if Clay Helton can just be a decent coach, then he should win. As he has the first 2 years, and then Chip Kelly. So Kevin Sumlin's got that to deal with. But other than that, his program should be at least, if not better, than the other programs in the division. All right, Penn State has a great chance this year. Franklin ain't no joke. Jack on the line, Philadelphia Eagles fan, basking in the glow of Nick Foles and company winning the Super Bowl. And what a play by the Michigan linebacker, Graham, off the edge to end that thing. Or at least that was ending the final drive that had enough time. And then, of course, New England got it back. They still had a shot to throw a Hail Mary or so. All right, so we've got all sorts of stuff going on here at Mark Rogers TV. Tomorrow, I am going to be traveling to Newport, Rhode Island for the American Conference Media Days. And I was looking at, and I may have to leave the set for about 3 seconds. So I was doing a little prep here for the American Conference Media Days. On coming up Monday and Tuesday, I'm going to be in Newport, Rhode Island for those. And it's amazing. This being the poster boy conference for the coach who is looking to make the big leap. Scott Frost, Tom Herman. Those are the coaches that you see in the American Conference, which has arguably been, no, I'm going to say it has been the best group of 5 conference for the last few years. Central Florida, Houston, Navy, Memphis, really good football there. I look at these coaches in the American Conference, and I've attended this now. This will be the 3rd time in 4 years, and the coaching turnover is crazy. And these programs are in a difficult place because they want to hire the best possible candidate, but they're gone in 2 or 3 years. Central Florida's got Josh Heupel in his first year. Scott Frost off to Nebraska after just 3 years. After just 2 years, he took over an 0-12 program. He took them to 6 wins and then to 13-0. Cincinnati, Tommy Tuberville moves on. Our good buddy here at Mark Rogers TV. Tommy Tuberville moves on. Luke Fickell takes over. This is his 2nd season. These coaches have not been around. UConn. This is Randy Edsall's 2nd stint, but just his 2nd season at UConn. I believe they went, I need the record here, 3-9 last year. East Carolina was Scott Montgomery. He's on the hot seat. He has not had a good start to his tenure at East Carolina, and he's one of those tenured coaches. Houston, Tom Herman, gone. This is only Major Applewhite's 2nd season. Memphis with Mike Norvell. Justin Fuente, of course, moving to Virginia Tech. He's had 2 seasons at Virginia Tech. Mike Norvell, only 2 seasons at Memphis. These coaches have only been around a year or 2. Okay, here's the one exception, I believe. Ken Niumatalolo at Navy. He's been there forever, doing a great job. Navy, just the service academies, if you guys have heard me speak about the service academies, and I have had on Troy Calhoun, the head coach at Air Force, a number of times, I'm just amazed at what they accomplished. So that's the one exception. South Florida, Charlie Strong, of course, taking over after Willie Taggart left for Oregon. That was only 2 years ago. Sonny Dykes at SMU. He's a first-year head coach, former Louisiana Tech and Cal head coach, and we've had Sonny Dykes here at Mark Rogers TV a few times. Jeff Collins took over the Temple program from Matt Rule, who just moved on last year. Tulane and Willie Fritz. Willie Fritz has been at Tulane for a few years. But yeah, this conference has completely turned over just in the last 2 or 3 years, other than Navy. You had the coach at East Carolina, a very nice gentleman, very respected guy who has moved on to be a consultant somewhere else. He's basically a coach / consultant, and I can't think of his name. But Scotty Montgomery took over for him at East Carolina, and he's having a rough time. Philip Montgomery at Tulsa. This is only his, I believe, 3rd season taking over for Bill Blankenship, who was at Tulsa. Every coach outside of Navy's only been there for about 3 years or less, or their first year. The entire conference turned over, and that's a difficulty that the American Conference has. They hire really good coaches, but they're not going to stay at Memphis or Houston or one of those other programs, Central Florida, when they can go to Texas or Nebraska or Virginia Tech. So that's where I'm going to be for the next 2 days. Also monitoring the Big Ten Media Days, so expect analysis from there as well. If I can be sending videos from my hotel room with a decent Wi-Fi, I will analyze the Big Ten as best that I can if the nightlife is not too good. And that's my lineup for the next 2 days is American Conference Media Days. Got all the schedules ranked. I need to run through them one more time, make sure I didn't make any obvious mistakes. So schedule rankings are coming. Big Ten and Pac-12 Media Days this week, and we will have plenty of coverage from Los Angeles and Chicago. How many decades before Kansas has double-digit wins? So, Henry, do you remember the last time Kansas was good? 2009, they went to a bowl game. I believe that was their last winning season. I think it was 2009. And I can't remember that bowl game. But in 2007, they finished in the top 5 in the country with Todd Reesing at quarterback, 12-1, won a BCS game. Do you think Mark Richt should give up play calling at Miami? I think it's a general rule that most head coaches at this level and beyond should not be calling their own plays. They have too much going on. They are organizing everything. They are the tippy top of the pyramid. They are the CEO. And yes, I want them to have knowledge of what's going on in every unit. I want them to have influence on the play calling. I want them to have meetings and face-to-face discussions to communicate their expectations about the play calling and put their influence and their signature of their offensive philosophy on the play calling. And then definitely on Sunday, rake that play caller over the coals and review the play calling. But most coaches, I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I'm thinking that Mark Richt should not be calling his own plays. We'll see if he proves me wrong this year. Alonzo1219 definitely is against Mark Richt calling his own plays. Willie Taggart calls his own plays, and he's been very successful doing that at Western Kentucky, taking them from 2-10 to 7-5, 7-5, 2 consecutive years. At South Florida, he was very successful at that. Willie Taggart is going to find out, and probably got a touch of it at Oregon, that his responsibilities and the time restraints and the lags and the drag on his time, the commitments and responsibilities that are going to pull his time at Florida State versus being at South Florida are 2 different worlds. Cross calls to plays also. So as soon as our guy Henry asks that, everybody's going to give me the exceptions, and I get it. I think there can be exceptions to play calling responsibilities by the head coach. I generally don't think it's wise. Dondre on the line. Dondre, good to see you. I was letting everyone know just a few minutes ago that I have reached out to a number of Clemson contributors to try to catch up on Clemson content. So for right now, again, over the next several days, it's going to be all about media days at the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, and it's going to be about my schedule rankings. And then after that, I'm going to dive into previews and predictions. You may not see a whole lot of guests in the next few weeks. Then once we get about a week to 10 days into fall camp, that's when we start to hear news out of fall camp and get some idea of what might be happening with quarterback battles. Unfortunately, there's going to be some injuries. There's going to be positional battles that we need to keep an eye on, and that's when I'm going to bring some folks back in to talk camp at various sites and get that that team report about 2 weeks into camp, that we can start to project who's going to win quarterback battles and who's going to be on the field and how's it going. So for the next few weeks, not a whole lot there. Jimbo calls his own plays. Yes, Volunteer Roadshow. I've talked to Pigskin Pete. He had technical difficulties the last time we tried to have him on, and I just spoke with him today to try to get that cleared up. Clemson and ECU. Cash Boy D. Roll effing Tide. Just on the line. So we have talked it up here for however long, about an hour plus. Appreciate you guys jumping on board. I have, unfortunately, work obligations that I need to tend to. Otherwise, I would sit here all night and talk college football. So again, schedule rankings coming up. The next 2 days, you guys will see me in a suit and tie at the American Conference Media Days. We will also be covering the Big Ten and the Pac-12 Media Days with plenty of guests. And then previews and predictions throughout August, getting you set for 2018. We are only 6 weeks from today away from, and I know this gets most of you even more excited than just saying college football, LSU, Miami. This time, 6 weeks from right now, we will be previewing LSU and Miami, and we will be talking a whole lot about what just happened on Saturday with Michigan and Notre Dame as the headliner. I appreciate your support. You guys have no idea how much. I can't do this without you. There's no purpose in it. There's no reason. I'd be talking to nothing, to no one. Even if you guys were watching but not interacting, it wouldn't be anything close to the same, because that's what I had for a few years. Was I enjoyed researching and previewing and doing analysis, but there wasn't a whole lot of feedback, and I hated it. So you guys make this channel work. Thanks for the comments, the likes, and the subscribers. Definitely, let's push it over 5,000. Maybe we have already. And to subscriber number 5,000, let me know who you are. I'm actually going to do the count, so you don't need to let me know who you are. I will, as soon as I hit 5,000 subscribers, I will look at the list, figure out who that lucky soul is, thank them immensely because you have helped us reach a landmark, and then you will get, if you want it, a debate with Mark Rogers TV. And I have let you guys know in recent weeks, specifically the last time we were on, no, it's not fair that number 5,000 gets a debate with me. So whether you're Navy Thomas 8 or NCIS fanatic or George or Tim Lee, or you guys know Country Boy or Prince 6'1" or Too Bad 28, there's a number of you guys. Henry, I'm missing some people. Leon. If you guys want to debate me, if you guys have anything to talk about, you are welcome. You guys have earned the right based on your support, your loyalty, you guys helping to drive the channel. If you guys want to jump on the line sometime and talk, we will do that. In the meantime, I will get the phone line set up, and we will be able to talk. Anybody, even if they're joining for the first time, will be able to comment and discuss college football. But for right now, if you want to jump on the line, not today, but let me know if you'd like to. And you old timers, you faithful ones, can discuss and debate college football with me. All right. Do we have anything else? Made it to 5,000. NCIS Fanatic has been tracking this. He sent me a message on Twitter a few hours ago telling us that we were 4 away. We have now hit 5,000. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much. And whether you are number 498, 4998, or number 13, or number 121, or number 3042, whatever you are, thank you for your contribution to Mark Rogers TV. Continue to support the channel. You are going to see me tomorrow, God willing, from American Conference Media Days, Monday and Tuesday. And then we will get our support and our contributors in from the Big Ten and the Pac-12 to cover those media days. And that's what you're going to see out of us for the next few days. And I don't think anybody else cares with me. But schedule rankings. Schedule rankings. I love doing them. I will see you guys soon. Thanks so much for your help. Yes, Too Bad 28. I appreciate the congratulations, and you guys made it all possible. You will see me back here tomorrow and Tuesday. I can't meet my regular schedule with the Monday live stream at 6 o'clock. I don't think I can. Maybe I can. I think that's going to be a bit difficult to do, but I'm going to be on here with content from beautiful Newport, Rhode Island, right there on the beach from American Conference Media Days, and I will be tracking the Big Ten, and the Pac-12 is coming up on Wednesday. We've got Tony Siracusa, who will be live from Pac-12 Media Days, and he's going to be joining us, and we'll have all sorts of other guests on as well. We will see you guys soon. You have a great rest of your weekend. You guys are the best. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, your voice, my voice, and the voice of many contributors out there. Make it all happen. We'll see you soon.